I'm just doing my vocal
Um,
warm-ups, you know?
yeah.
Isn't that normal? It actually
You want to help me?
that shit really does help, actually.
You want to help this? She's not
It's like,
interested in that.
what the
Nope.
fuck are you doing?
Oh God. Hi. You guys are just gonna make all kinds of noise, aren't you?
Fucking
Does this sound good? Is this
dogs.
coming through okay? I was fucking around with it earlier, making sure.
It does sound good.
Yeah. My Yeti stereo mic. It has like all these different settings where you can make it so that like it picks up audio from both sides of the mic or just from the front
Yeah.
or like so I set
Directional.
it so that it's just kind of coming from the front, so hopefully it doesn't pick up as much background noise.
Excess
Hopefully.
shizniz. No, it does sound good.
Good.
How was your walk with your doggy?
It was very nice. It's pretty nice out today, actually. It's been
Is
like
it?
really nice around here all week, and then yesterday it just clouded over and was just pouring rain all day. And then I was looking at the weather app. They were like, "Oh, it's just going to rain all weekend." I'm like, "Oh, of course." You know, when I finally am not trapped in an office all day, it's going to rain. So it was nice. It's surprisingly nice out today. So
Yeah, it was.
walking.
Yeah, I've heard there's a big ass storm coming, and it's supposed to be like crazy rainy all over, the area for at least up here for like into next week. But
Yeah, I think we have
what's new?
some rain coming. But we'll need it, I'm sure. Otherwise,
Yeah.
half the state will probably fucking burn down again like it did last year.
Well, it's gonna get so dry during the summer. Who knows? I don't think any winter helps the summer, if that makes sense. Does it? Does it matter? I mean, obviously no winter would help, but would make it worse. I mean, but
I mean, I feel like, yeah, if we didn't get any rain, yeah, it'd be way worse. But we'll probably, I don't think we would get enough to make it as big of a difference.
Yeah.
As far as like stopping wildfires, you just have to have people not be stupid to stop that. Just, maybe don't.
So never stop it. There's
right?
never not going to be stupid people.
Don't,
So
don't flick your cigarette butts onto your car windows. Don't have your gender reveal parties with the fucking explosive colored smoke things. And because that was one of them that started last year was somebody at a gender reveal party, because it's like not like a firework, but it's some kind of thing that like explodes basically and has like the colored smoke to reveal.
Yeah. I think it was something like tannerite, which is a thing you shoot with a gun and it explodes. And I think they had like a colored version of it, which is I can't relate to in any way because I've never had a child and never been so obsessed with whether it's a boy or girl. That'd be it's kind of like a wedding in that, like, if I had a wedding, it would be at a courthouse and it'd be very practical. It'd be the same at the hospital. I'd just be like, is it a boy or girl? So I can like know and plan ahead and figure out how I'm going to socialize them and create really rigid stereotypes right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And give them only guns and trucks.
It's true.
If they're a boy.
If they're a boy. Yeah, if they're a boy.
Or if they're like a hermaphrodite, I'm going to give them guns and trucks too. To force them.
Yeah,
to be the like, one I want.
What? If somebody's born a hermaphrodite, don't they typically remove one of the organs depending on like which one's the more dominant one? Because I think that they usually have one that's like a little bit more of a dominant.
Yeah.
If they got a big swinging dick or just a gaping maw,
I don't think
we got to figure out.
Babies. I don't think babies have either of those. Babies don't have. Oh man, now I'm jealous of babies.
They come out of the womb just this big fucking schlong to slap it.
Well, I guess we know what this one is. Like, is it a boy or a girl?
No secret here, fellas.
It seems like as a parent, if you don't want to know, I guess I get either side, but if you want to know, it seems like you should know the most. Like, you should know everything. Like, the best parents would be knowledgeable at some level. Like, at least know something about child development, at least know something about like other people's kids, like maybe have babysat a few times. But not like just being like, I don't know. I don't want to know the sex of the baby, so it's a surprise. Why would you want anything to be a fucking surprise with a baby?
Well, I just want to wing it like I'm going to do with raising this child.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why.
Maybe I think it's like a sign of, but I'm like anxiety ridden all the time. So the only way to help with my anxiety is to like know more and to research things and like be prepared.
That's how I am
Otherwise,
too.
I'm just like, I mean, I'm decent at like um improving once I've done the research. Like once I have a general idea or I have some experience, I don't mind. Like I don't need a script, but I definitely like. I mean, this is scripted, but that's because I was bored.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reading from a script right now. It's very exciting. I put a
Just
lot
see,
of uhs,
I can,
and I put the word like
I can see
in
the
my
word,
script.
the words. It's very exciting on the page. Like,
Just
just
make it
make
very
sure.
obvious to start moving your head through like I'm doing
Yeah,
right now.
like
This is a very intricate script that we've
yeah.
written here. It's
When you see
very
like somebody reading a teleprompter and it's just really, really obvious.
their eyes, yeah, just
Yeah,
going back and forth,
yeah,
and they're trying not to move their head so that they're not making it obvious. So they're just super rigid, but their eyes are just
yeah. Like they're watching a tennis match or something. Are we ready? I wrote some notes. I don't know if you want to look at them at all.
If you want to pull them up, yeah, I have like the
Yeah,
article that I shared with you pulled up because I
yeah.
read through it like a couple of times for
Um,
funsies. Oh, have we already started, or are you waiting to start, or are you just gonna, or we have we started and you're just gonna edit around, or
I don't
you know who
know.
fucking cares at
Oh,
this
I
point,
don't
right?
know.
It's a free fucking podcast. Fuck
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about the fucking production
off.
quality, you fucking freeloader. Um, no, I am recording, but we can cut whatever we want.
Oh, okay.
I think sometimes it's kind of fun to just like it, there's no like real demarcation of like beginning. It's not, I
Yeah.
mean, I'll have like, we can create an intro at the beginning or we can create one now. Why don't you do one now and I'll bring up this, do you want to do it?
Do you want me to do an intro? Like
Yeah,
the
do
show's
like,
just starting?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Oh, dude, you got to commit to this.
I
Gotta commit.
agree.
I'm debating if I should. I mean, I'm gonna put a little stank on it. Okay.
I
So,
don't care.
I'd like to think that there's a song that's playing me in, and then I'm just gonna start. Well, hello there, folks. Welcome to the Fleeting Thoughts podcast. This is where we come together and have a palaver, talk about all things in the world. We leave no stone unturned. We leave no river undammed. This is the Fleeting Thoughts podcast hosted by Joseph Gray from the Clan Gray and Shannon Cornwall from the Clan Cornwall. I don't know why I'm talking like this and saying we're from clans. That's weird. But here we are. This is Fleeting Thoughts podcast. Joseph, let's jump right in, boys. Find out what we're going to be talking about today.
Hello. Thank you very much. That was beautiful. That was unexpected as fuck.
That's what I felt like coming in with something really out of left field.
Yeah, it was. It reminded me of your Western Sins trilogy.
Thank you.
Ooh.
I'm working on that right. I was actually literally just writing it right before we started
yeah.
working on some of it. So
Instant plug. Palaver. That's one I remember from your other books.
Yeah, there's certain words that I really glom onto with that series.
Yeah. Did you look up like lists of old-timey phrases / words?
What's funny is when I wrote Hell Came With Her, I had like this whole list of it was like 2 or 3 pages long of just slang terms, words, phrases that they used. And I tried to like incorporate some of them, but since writing that book, I've eased off of the really like ridiculously over the top language that they apparently used back then.
Yeah.
Because that was like the number one criticism people had for Hell Came With Her. They're like, the language is like sort of hard to decipher sometimes because it's very like thick. And so I've kind of eased off of it a little bit. I've introduced I base a character's education level off of how severe the accent is. And so it's like if it's a character that's meant to be like somewhat educated, they talk more normally. And then if it's somebody that's a little bit more world weary, they speak with a thicker accent or with more interesting dialect.
Yeah, the more old-timey idioms and weird unrelatable things that they say.
Exactly, right.
I'm reading Deadwood, and it's got some of that in it, but it's really not like that hard to decipher. It's not that bad.
Yeah. For me, I just tried to work on balancing it because I went into it so deep with Hell Came With Her because I was like, I really want this to be like authentic. And then as you go, you're like, I've read other Western novels where they don't do that at all. You wouldn't even realize that it took place like in the 1800s because they speak just like we do for the most part.
Yeah.
Aside from like the more contemporary slang that we use, but
yeah, they're not like
they're not saying
LMFAO and LOL and stuff.
Yeah,
which would be perfectly funny.
They're not like I'm a stand for this whiskey. It's very good. That's like a new one that I've seen popping up. Everybody's saying that they're a stand for something. I'm like, and I actually had to look it up, which it's just a nod to the Eminem song "Stan," which I should have known.
Oh, Stan.
Yeah,
as in fan, as in
like because it's that song that he wrote.
Yeah.
What was that, like on his second or third album? It was anyway. It came out when I was like 12, and so I was like, oh, I know that song. Why did I not make that connection?
I thought you were saying stand. Like, oh, no, I'm standing for it, but that's kind of similar. But stand. That's so weird. Like, that's actually a pretty old reference for a new phrase.
That's why I didn't make the connection, I think, because I just started hearing people that just started popping up, like on Twitter. People were saying that they were a stand for whatever. And so I was like, I don't know. I was like, what does that even mean? I literally had to be that old guy who
I do
go to Google and put Stan Urban Dictionary or something, and then to find out what it was, because that happens more frequently, which is depressing. Just you get to your 30s and this is what it's like. You're starting to transition to the age where you have to look shit up because you're just not in with the in crowd anymore.
Yeah, I work with like 20-year-olds roughly, up to like 25, 26. There's a couple of them, and there's some older ones too, but and they're always saying stuff that I don't understand, and then I'm just annoyed at them. Like, I don't want to know. They say it to like annoy me, and it works, and I'm just like, say things that make sense. Stop making up bullshit just because that's like terminology you've heard. Stop trying to be part of the young crowd, young people. Be like me and not know what that means. The last one that I tried to understand was simp, and I still don't really get how I get the somewhat of the meaning. It's kind of like a derogatory term for people, but I don't get why it's simp. Is it simple? Is it like simply? Is it?
I sometimes think that they just pick something because it sounds catchy.
You're such a simp.
Yeah, simp just sounds.
Yeah, I don't know.
The simp is one I've seen more, which I think that's almost like what we used to call being in the friend zone. I feel like.
I don't know. I think it's worse than that. I think it's more like somebody who stalks somebody online because they're hot and is like super into them. But it's like when you just have like you pay for OnlyFans or something. Like, I don't know.
So here's the definition
up
for simp, because we've already established that we're at a fucking stage where we have to do this. So a simp is someone who does way too much for a person they like. The example the example that Urban Dictionary has is Brian Shue the simp. I bought her a car and a whole ass house, and we not even dating.
Oh, geez, that's a
to which Nathan
excess wealth.
To which Nathan the pimp replies, "You a simp."
You a simp.
So this is taken from a conversation. Brian Shue is the simp, and then he's talking to Nathan the pimp.
Yeah, it reminds me of a cuck, like somebody who just like prostrates themselves for their lover and does anything they want, and is a what is it called? Subservient, subordinate.
Pussy whipped.
That's not a new pussy whipped, but
you can't say
like
that
in the friend zone.
Yeah, you can't say friend. Well, friend zone maybe still gets used, but you can't say pussy whipped anymore because that's derogatory towards women, and then you're a sexist piece of garbage. So don't Don't go around throwing that one out.
It's derogatory towards men who are pussy whipped. Like
it reminds me
of being bitches,
when
which you definitely shouldn't say.
When you're trying to be tough and people are like, grow a pair of balls. But then if you're being scared, they say, don't be a pussy. And then I love when people are like, well, you think it'd be the opposite because balls are so fragile and weak and vaginas can take a pounding and just keep going. So you would think that you would want to reverse that and be like, dude, where's that gaping vagina ready to take the pounding? Like,
you're literalizing the metaphor. And I love that. I think that should be done way more often, and things should get way more confusing because of it. Because yeah, that's funny. It's more about like testosterone and estrogen, but you're making about the physical biological structures. Yeah, exactly. I think that's very, very clever. Okay, so let's I don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
This is a good icebreaker.
You know? I think this is perfect. Are you recording on your side just as a matter of
Oh no, I haven't hit it.
Why don't you do that just so we have a bit of a backup, just in case I lose all of your audio?
Oh, it looks like you have to give me permission to record. Because I clicked record and it just says, please ask the host to give you permission to record.
How do I do that?
You'll figure it out. I believe in you.
Let's look at participants, Channing Moore. Allowed to record local files. So try it again.
Oh, there we go. Now we're in business. It's recording.
Cool. So hello, and again, welcome to the Fleeting Thoughts podcast, just in case we have to get rid of the entire beginning of that. What we have is a very special occasion in which Channing Cornwall is back on the podcast and has been quite some time, which is a very lovely change in the way that it's been for the last few years. Although you have been on the podcast a few times, more kind of as a interviewee,
it's true,
host, I suppose. How long has it been since we did one at all?
So, when you added the podcast to Spotify recently, because you're a simp and didn't have that already done.
Oh, I thought you were giving me a praise for hooking it up with that finally. It's it's on there now.
No, it is. Yeah. And so I actually was looking through I was looking through the old episodes because I was trying to find out when the last time we actually sat down and did an episode, like, when we first originated and founded the podcast, where we were doing it every time together before you sort of moved away and then became your own solo person. And I think we did, let's see here. It looked like we did about 89. 88 episodes. We did 88 episodes, and then it broke off into you doing this like, more solo stuff.
Really? So that's a lot. That's a lot, and yet I feel like I didn't do that many by myself. But I guess it's been a few years, and I did some real like weird stuff with the podcast. Some of it was just reading certain things and whatnot. And I did some interviews and some group podcasts with my brother and a couple other friends. And then I called you a couple times and recorded interviews about books, I think, that were coming out.
Yeah, we did one for Hell Came With Her when it came out in 2016. Yeah, that was in November. But yeah, so our last episode together as like a legit show was June 9th, 2016.
Wow, 2016. That's
right. Almost 5 years ago.
Isn't 5 years. Yeah, that's crazy. So so you mentioned it. I moved and we were doing podcasts every day or every week, every day. We were doing them every day. Yeah. It felt like it for a long time. And then I moved up to Portland to try some new stuff. And I started living with my brother. And then I started a small business doing videography and photography. And the podcast just sort of went by the wayside for, just as a formal thing. And it was kind of, I don't know, it was so disconcerting. I just wasn't able to get rid of, like, I wasn't like, we're done with the podcast. So I'm glad that I kept it going, at least as far as paying for the hosting and all that. But recently, I think with the kind of just full on digital remote recording world, you came and texted me and you were like, why are we not just doing this remotely?
Yeah, it didn't really dawn on me until really with the pandemic and everything over the last year, and that whole nightmare situation where, like, everybody switched to doing things remotely, and we both had the equipment, and it just suddenly dawned on me after you did your last episode with Joey Edwards, where you did an interview with him recently, and I saw that pop up on my Twitter feed, and it just sort of got the gears twisting in my head, and I was like, why are we not doing this show anymore? We have the equipment, we have the means to do it. It's just a matter of getting it organized again and setting up a time and kind of just getting back in the groove of it. And so nice background.
I can do that too.
I decided to put a spicy background on
I
here,
like
so
it.
people weren't just looking at my kitchen.
Sure.
Basically. And so that was when I texted you, and I was like, I even remember when I was texting you, I'm like, this is totally out of nowhere, because we hadn't really talking. I don't know how to talk.
We haven't really
spoken like that much recently. We would touch base like every once in a while. And so I just remember texting, be like, hey, I know this is completely out of the blue and totally random, but do you want to just reignite the podcast, get this fiery passion ablaze again?
Just kindle, get a little kindling, get a little get a spark going, and then turn it into a blaze of bonfire glory.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, totally barely a sequitur is I watched a leak of Elden Ring. I mentioned bonfires, so I thought immediately of Dark Souls.
Of course.
And then there's a leak of Elden Ring, and it was like, oh, it's Dark Souls 4. How interesting. Did you watch the leak, or do you know about
that? I know of the leak. I haven't watched it yet. All I heard is everybody making fun of it, because they're like, how come every time there's a leak like this, somebody's filming it with like a potato, because it's running at like 240 p, and it's the shaky cam nonsense. Like,
it's come on, people. Do you really want, like, I mean, obviously the official trailer would be cool, but I don't want like a leaked video that's essentially an official trailer, but it's not done and it's not what they wanted to show, and then they change a bunch of stuff. I'd rather it was all grainy and shitty and like looked like found footage, so that it's more exciting when the real one comes out, and I'm not all disappointed at all the changes.
It's just funny because we all have cell phones now that have like 1080p cameras on them. So
that is true. How did you accomplish it?
How did you even create this footage? You would have to have filmed it with a camera, uploaded it, and then put it into some program that made it look shitty or something. It's really weird. So I'm just gonna wait, because I don't want to get excited for something that may not even be coming out for some years. It's one of those, From Software is one of those game companies where I already know I'm just going to play whatever they put out.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't need to be sold on it.
Take my money.
Yeah. Just tell me when it's coming.
Yeah.
I hate getting excited for things when they're more than like 6 months away. Even 6 months is kind of pushing it. But
like when if you're having a baby, like you'd be like, I don't even give a shit for like a while.
Right, like, exactly.
Tell me what it is, but I don't care at all.
Because like
when you start getting real fat, let me know.
Right, exactly. And because I mean, for the game, it's like, let's say they put a trailer out tomorrow, and then you watch this trailer, you get all pumped for it, and then they don't even give you a month. It just says like 2022, and you're like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess I'll wait till next year to learn more.
Yeah, I like how what I'm picturing is like a kid in his bedroom who watches the trailer, and then he just starts doing like push-ups and sit-ups, and like he's just pumped, and he's like, fuck you, I'm gonna play a game, I'm gonna sit down and fucking do this for a while, it's gonna be crazy. And then like he can't do that, and he gets all sad, and it's like dun, 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 dun. Or no, that's the Jurassic Park theme, which I'm learning on the guitar. What's the one where it's like sad and you like Stewie walks away? I don't remember that one.
I can't think of how it goes exactly. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's almost like dun, 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 but it's not dun, 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 it's like not that. So long story short, Channing's back, and we are going to like produce this podcast and put it out. And I think the general format is going to be similar to what we were doing before, which is fleeting some thoughts around and just batting them back and forth. like
Yeah,
a
before every show, I
cat,
take a hammer and just crack the back of my head open and just see
just
what leaks
whatever.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've got like topics, and we're gonna recommend some things and talk about games and pop culture and
Whatever the
philosophy and
fuck we want.
other bullshit. And I think we're pretty. I think we did a good job of getting people caught up. You've been writing some books.
I have been, yeah,
which
of
is
course.
not different than before.
No, it's funny how much life has not changed in the last 5 years. You know, I've written like, let's see, we stopped doing the podcast regularly, I should say, when Hell Came With Her came out, which was 2016. I've written 3 books that have come out since then. And I'm like, got half of another book written. Yeah,
it's
so
3 books
last 5
in
years,
5 years. No big deal.
And
3 like multi-100-page novels.
I'm just in my 30s now, and
yeah, that's true.
I've started to go bald. So basically what I'm trying to say is that as a almost 32-year-old balding white man, I just look like every white supremacist domestic terrorist in this country, which is just really disappointing. It's really hard.
Is that because of the beard mostly?
I think so, yeah, which I'm not going to lose the beard. I had the beard before white supremacists were being active terrorists. I think probably not.
What's bringing on this whole white? I don't remember the last time I heard about any white extremists. Oh, I guess it was it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot. Yeah, that was so long ago. Oh,
well, it's 2 months ago. It's depressing. It's like school shootings. You know, you're just like, haven't we not had one in like a month? That's a pretty good record for us, right?
And there's no schools to shoot. Nobody's
that's actually the depressing like upside to the whole pandemic is that school hasn't been in session, so no children have been butchered in their classrooms.
Honestly,
so thank you coronavirus. You murdered 520,000 other Americans, but you kept the kids safe.
Yeah, so well, good. And suicides are up, so that's like instead of shooting up schools, they're killing themselves, which is really sad. I think that I was gonna say something like, oh, it's probably good to give kids like a total break from that environment if they if that environment's so toxic that it's creating people who just want to murder everyone else around them, then which I don't blame necessarily the schools for that. It's households and culture and all these other things, but maybe it's good to give those kids who may have done that, like, just have them be at home and not be bullied and not get these plans in their heads. And I guess the access to the guns is still there, but they can't go to a movie theater to shoot up. Like, it's really odd
too right now.
Yeah, I don't know when that's going to open up, but I think I haven't been to a movie in so long, and I hadn't really been going anyway before, but every once in a while I would just go to a movie by myself because I'm also a loner. I mean, I was going to say I'm also white, and then I said loner because I didn't want to say that. But
yeah, I mean, you're even higher up on the statistic than I am. If you add loneliness into the equation, then I mean, I at least have a wife that tolerates me, so that helps. That helps with the white rage, the male white rage.
I think a wife would just add to that rage.
Yeah, probably.
I can do whatever I want. I have a room just with like a camera in it, like for all my OnlyFans accounts.
I was going to say, are you about to plug an OnlyFans?
Yeah,
great,
I don't know.
Great.
I feel like anybody can create one of those. Like, you don't have to do porn on there, do you? Like, I could just have fans.
I think it was created
just be my fan
to not be a porn thing, but we're all human beings that want to just fuck all the time. So everything becomes a porn thing.
Yeah, everything gets taken over and turned into porn, like Chatter, or what was that? Chat roulette or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Just a bunch of dudes with dicks.
Yeah, and then you just turn. I never did that. I was like, I don't like people at all, and random people scare me, so I don't want to just turn on my computer. If I want to turn on my computer and see dicks, I'll just go to a porn site and
then you get to choose. It's not random. Exactly. You kind of get to scroll and pick the dick you look at.
Yep, black dicks, Asian dicks, other types of dicks.
Those 2 types and then other. Like if you
I don't know.
If you were filling out an application and it was like, what kind of dick do you have? It's black
Indian
dick,
dicks,
Asian dick, other.
Native American dicks. Never white dicks.
Yeah, nobody cares about white dicks. White dicks are, they're the
white dicks matter. White dicks matter. I'm gonna get a shirt made. Um,
And then you have like a random Richards on the street. They're like, "Thank you, I
yeah, yeah,
agree."
yeah. No, oh yeah, I do matter, kind of a little bit, maybe.
The only thing I know about chat roulette is from an episode of South Park. I'd never even heard of it before South Park, and I'd never
Is
messed with it.
South Park still on? I haven't watched South Park in
So
years.
they haven't done. It's still on. They haven't done anything like a new season with the pandemic. They did like a pandemic special, and then they have
Mm,
another special next week actually that's
mm.
about the vaccines. So they've been kind of doing these like long form.
Oh,
Like the
really?
the last special I think was like an hour and a half or something like that,
Oh,
and
mm,
then the new one will probably be the same thing. But they were doing like traditional, 10 episode seasons up until
yeah.
last year.
I just
That show's gonna
stopped
be like The
watching them
Simpsons, where it's just gonna go on until the creators want to stop, probably.
till somebody dies.
Yeah, it'll just
Somebody
keep getting remade or renewed, not remade.
continually, persistently made.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like too many cartoons do that. They end up stopping because I think a lot of the voiceover actors are fairly young in a lot of new cartoons, and then they end up wanting to do other things
Yeah.
and not just be stuck in voice actor town forever, or a particular uh, single job.
Well, and I think the creators of the show, the same thing. They probably just like, I don't want to keep making seasons of this show. I
Yeah,
do have other creative endeavors I want to pursue. But
yeah,
I think there's certain cartoons that would probably stay on for forever as long as people wanted to keep doing them, like The Simpsons, South Park. I bet you could probably even put like Rick and Morty in that. If they maintained that same level of quality, the shows will probably just constantly be
yeah.
renewed.
The only thing about Rick and Morty is it's a little less formulaic than the other ones, and I could see it kind of going in on itself and eating its own tail because of how fucking weird it is sometimes
Mm-hmm.
and meta. But you can obviously do it forever. It's just it's almost super. It's almost too smart to like just have like another episode every time. That's like it almost has to, because they're continuous. They kind of add to each other throughout the seasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of,
Well,
maybe.
and they also, you start to realize that the show's not necessarily as unique when other shows start kind of cropping up that sort of use some of like they do another show on Hulu called Solar Opposites, which I don't know if you
Oh
watched that
yeah,
at all,
I did.
which is basically just like it feels like a spinoff of Rick and
It
Morty.
is. In
And
that
so
it's got Justin Roiland as the main
mhm,
uh, voice actor, but it's a totally different creative team. I think as far as like the writer team
yeah.
and the producers. But it took me a few episodes to get into Solar Opposites because I was kind of expecting it to be um, more outlandish. And it's a little bit more like The Simpsons. It's a little more formulaic. It's a little bit more grounded in the family type situation.
That's how it was for me too. I remember watching the first few episodes and I was like, this just feels like a poor man's Rick and Morty. I'd rather
Yeah,
just go watch Rick and Morty. But it
yeah,
does get a lot better as the season goes,
yeah.
especially with the whole like human ant farm thing that they have going
Yep.
on, which is hilarious. And then you get this whole episode that just takes place inside that. And so I think that it'll get a lot better with time. The second season is supposed to be coming out soon.
Yeah.
I think in the next couple months, maybe. I don't remember exactly. I could look it up, but why do that?
It's too hard.
Guesswork
It's
is
too
more
difficult.
fun.
I have a question for you. Since we're
Mhm.
talking about cartoons, and I've been watching a particular cartoon, um, what is your like all-time favorite cartoon like series?
Oh, South
TV.
Park.
Oh, okay.
Oh, South Park for sure. If you're talking just animated, it'd be South Park
Yeah.
for sure.
And I'm thinking more adult oriented, but obviously
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
wouldn't matter. But
No, South Park's one of those shows that my wife Vanessa and I watch that show every night at bed. Like she just puts it
oh,
on and it just plays like a few episodes before the TV turns off automatically. And so I fall asleep like every night to South Park.
oh
It's one of
wow.
those shows that I can just rewatch the
Yeah.
episodes. I quote that show a lot in my day-to-day life too. And so definitely South Park as far as animated shows.
Nice. I think I stopped watching it when it stopped being on whatever channel I had access to. So like and I found it to be a little bit kind of um like obvious in what their surrealist kind of parody got a little
Yeah.
bit predictable, and I think people know that, but um I probably should start watching it again. I really loved it when I was watching it.
It's all on HBO Max now. That's the
Yeah.
new streaming platform it went to.
Yeah.
And so it has like all the seasons on there if you're wanting to jump back in. But
Yeah.
it's a show that ebbs and flows. It definitely has episodes that are pretty weak,
Yeah.
and then other episodes that are hilarious. So
Yeah.
it's sort of, and I think that's all down to how they make the show, because they notoriously have such a short turnaround time on it. Like they make the episode within a week,
Yeah.
like from
No, I
start to
know, right?
finish. So I imagine, and some people work well into that kind of time crunch,
Yeah.
which they obviously do because that's how they do the show. But I think that sometimes that makes it so that your ideas don't get as filled out as you wanted them to be, because you
Of course.
sort of just scraped it together really quickly.
Yeah.
Which makes these pandemic specials, I think, kind of interesting, because they obviously are spending a lot more time on them, so they feel a little bit more thought out.
Yeah. Well, when they think their stuff out, they do a really good job. All their movies are amazing. Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and Team America are amazing movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get like through a series like Rick and Morty, and then I'm like, well, now I got to have something else to put in the background of my life. And so lately I've been watching American Dad. Have you watched all of those?
Yeah, Vanessa's a big fan. She likes
Yeah.
anything Seth MacFarlane does, really.
Yeah, I
So
do
Family
too.
Guy, American Dad.
Yeah. I like Family Guy way more than American Dad, or the other way around. I like American Dad way more than Family Guy. I get bored with Family Guy, but I don't know. Maybe it's just it's a little bit more I don't know, it's maybe a little harsher, like with the jokes sometimes and all the flashbacks. It's a little more chaotic
And
than
that's like
American Dad.
the kind of humor that I enjoy the most, is like the darker, almost more vicious or ruthless
Yeah.
kind of humor that's a little bit more cutthroat,
Yeah.
which is harder to come by these days, because we have a lot of people who want to cancel things when they do something sort of offensive, or
Yeah.
and
I guess
so
that's why I like cartoons, because
mhm.
like they're kind of like Rick and Morty, they get away with almost anything. South Park gets away with almost anything. Um, I guess it's harder for people to censor it because it's so not real. Like it doesn't put that that immediate, like, I think they didn't dismiss it because it's like childish.
Yeah,
Maybe. I don't know.
when things hit too close to home, gotta put the
Yeah.
kibosh on it, I guess.
Yeah. I don't really follow cancel culture in any way. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know of anybody who's been canceled. I don't like, I wasn't listening to somebody and then I can't now. I don't know.
Oh, I think the only person that I listened to a lot, that then stuff came out, and now I just feel weird, is Louis C.K. Because I was like, I loved
Sure.
Louis. His fucking stand up was hilarious. He was like my favorite, one of my
Yeah.
favorite comedians. And then the whole shit came out about him like jerking off in front of women,
Yeah.
and now it's like,
But isn't he doing stand up again? Like
yeah,
I
he
watched
is
something on
basically.
YouTube and it was just the audio of a show, and it was awesome. He was super funny. He was talking, I he made fun of himself and the controversy, and like, I guess to me that isn't canceled necessarily, although it is, because like he had a show and all this,
Yeah, his
he was
show
on
got
TV all the
canceled.
time. He was like the number one stand up, during that time. And then but to me that's just the hiatus you go on when you got caught doing something perverted. You just take like 5 to 10 years off, and then you come back, and or maybe less, I don't know. Because I don't think what he did was like illegal, or as bad as like Kevin Spacey with like underage people.
Yeah. Well, and from I think what I remember was he had asked them if he could, but the women just felt pressured into saying yes because
Oh,
of
it
his
wasn't
status.
good. It wasn't
Yeah,
cool. It
it was like
wasn't
a
good at
weird
all.
situation.
I just
But
don't know that it was just sort of so odd. I don't know.
well, and now it just makes some of his stand-up comedy seem gross, because he used to joke about masturbating a lot and things like that. And so
Yeah.
at the time it's funny, but then when you learn about what he really does, and you're like, oh, now this is just kind of gross. Like this just feels icky
Yeah.
now, because
Yeah.
we all know how you can be
Yeah.
in the real
It is
world.
too
So
it's too personal. I don't
yeah,
need to know about your actual sexual
yeah,
perversions and such. I don't need to know that about anybody, really. I don't really
no.
Like it can be interesting to share that kind of stuff with somebody you care about so that you can not feel like a fucking freak. But otherwise, I don't need to know about your freaky shit. Like typically, I think some people love that stuff. I think some people really want to talk about it. They really want to know about all the kinky stuff. I used to listen to a podcast called what is it? It's the one with Tom Segura and his wife.
Oh, Your Mom's House?
Your Mom's House.
Yeah.
And it is like all about like weird YouTube videos or weird videos on these weird sites about sexual perversions and stuff. And it's kind of got a shock factor, but after a while it's like it's not funny, most of it. It's just true. Like that's how people are. People are hiddenly perverted in their own ways. And because no one talks about it, you can't gauge how fucked up you are. And so there's some people who are so fucked up, they love telling everybody about it and they put it all online and stuff. And then there's some people, like most people, who have perversions that they just hide because they don't know how perverted it is. They don't know like, is this super perverted, or is it just like, I just kind of like this weird type of porn? Like, is it even weird? You'll never know because you're not going to talk about it.
Well, and then sometimes when it gets brought to light, you're like, oh, it's not so weird now. Look at all these people who enjoy it.
Yeah. But you don't know because if it's too weird, you're fucking canceled. So you're like,
it's like making a joke.
Yeah. You never know what's going to,
and then you gauge based off people's reactions, whether or not it was a joke or you were being serious.
Yeah.
Like you say something that you mean to be serious, I guess. And then if people are like,
and you're like, no, I was being ironic. I just, wouldn't it be shitty if somebody said something like that? It's crazy.
Whoa, what a douchebag.
Who would talk like that? Speaking of perversions, let's get into our first kind of formal topic here, which is the perversion of not having babies. You fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I unfortunately have old man's bladder and I need to just take like 2 seconds. So just give me a second. It'll be more than 2 seconds, by the way.
2 seconds.
If you want to like, I don't know, like,
you want me to wing it right now?
Do
talk to the audience while you're urinating?
Of, jig or something like that. Do some dancing. Or like show the dogs. People love dogs, but you got to make noises because it's also audio podcast. Make some noise. Okay, I gotta go.
Well, I say just go pee. Jesus. Oh my gosh, this guy. Well, it's good to be back, everybody. For those of you that have listened to us for a while, it's almost like a relaunch of the show. Coming back we're like Gilmore Girls when it ended, and then it came back like 10 years later or something for a movie. Except for this will be longer than that, hopefully. Or, like Arrested Development, when it was canceled after its 3rd season, and then Netflix picked it up for a 4th season like 10 years later. And it wasn't as good, but at least you got more. This might be that way, actually. You might find out that this isn't as good as you remember it being from 5 years ago almost. And then you'll just fall off and realize that we don't know what we're talking about most of the time. We're just ballparking, winging. I'm just making shit up right now as I just wait for Joe to pee. He said 2 seconds, and I think he really meant like 10 minutes. He's probably got to tap the old prostate, get the pee flowing, It's maybe getting a little swollen. It happens to men when we age. You just get to this point where your prostate swells up. You got to milk that shit to pee. That's not true at all. I just made that up too. But anyway, it's good to be back. It's good to be here for another go round. It sounds like somebody's eating chips. That might be my wife in the background eating chips. If you guys can hear that, I'm sorry. I even have my microphone pointed the opposite direction to not pick up her chip eating.
You can hear our chips.
Yep, that was her. You might have just heard her yelling actually at me about eating her chips. Fucking rude.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I was just talking about how you probably had to tap the old prostate to get the pee flowing.
Ooh,
so it takes you a few minutes.
Like,
I don't know.
Where do you do that? I don't know how you do that.
Put a finger up the old butthole.
Oh, you literally touch your prostate.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make you come?
I think it does. Yeah. Milking the prostate. So,
that sounds hard to do by yourself. Like, I think you got to get pretty deep in there. I don't know. I'm waiting till I'm old enough where they test your prostate for cancer, because
yeah, it's like what, 40, 50?
yeah,
I think
do
it's
I
40.
have to? Do I have to? Like, who's
It's
in charge of
recommended.
this?
No, you don't. You don't. So I had a physical last year, which it was the first time I had to switch doctors because my other doctor moved away. And so my new doctor did my physical last year, and I was 31, and so she was
Yeah.
like, "Well, you're good. We don't have to do the old prostate check until," I think she said, 40.
Yeah.
A lot of a lot of cancer exams, like colon cancer, they've started reducing the age because more and more people are developing,
sense.
like especially colon cancer at like younger ages. It used to be, I think, like 50 was when they recommended you get your first colonoscopy, unless you had like a health history or health history,
Yeah.
sorry, a history of health problems or something like that. But I think that they're reducing the age for that. And I'm pretty sure prostates, like they recommend you start getting that checked at about 40 just to see. But I think she
Sure.
said that they if you get it checked at 40 and there's no enlargement or anything, it's just normal, then I think they just check it a few years after that. It's not like every single year. They sort
Yeah.
of just gauge
Every
it based
couple
off
years.
of where you're at.
I don't know. Doctors just want to put their fingers in you. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, when
It's
I
a conspiracy.
when I was getting my physical, she told me that a lot of men, so she was like, she's like, part of your physical is me examining your testicles and your penis, the whole
Yes.
downstairs. And so she
Yeah.
told me that a lot of her male patients are really uncomfortable with her doing that. And so she's like, I can tell you what to look for, and you can check yourself, or I can check. And I was like,
Now
well,
you do it.
I was like, you're the doctor. I mean,
When
I
else can I pay a
expected I'm
woman to
getting
touch my balls?
like,
It's not even legal otherwise.
I was like, this is not a sexual thing I'm not like getting turned on.
Yeah, it's
I
too
just,
uncomfortable all around to be in a
yeah,
doctor's
which
outfit.
it's weird when you're standing there and they're crouched or they sit on a stool in front of you and they
Yeah.
lift your gown and then you just start feeling somebody. It's not a sexual thing well, maybe for some people, but for me,
Well,
I'm just like,
it depends. Like, if she's very attractive and within your age group, and you're single, and just maybe that'd be a different situation. But I think it would be fairly awkward, because the whole thing is like you just got done telling her all this shit, like, about you, like, like, I just had uh, a physical done, and I think they did like a urine analysis and all this stuff, just like checking stuff. A couple years back, like right before the pandemic, I got a doctor and did that same thing. And I remember he just was like, have you ever done this drug? Have you ever done that drug? What about sex? When was the last time you had sex? And it's like, after you get done doing all that stuff, huh?
It's just depressing to answer all the questions.
No, it was therapeutic to actually say the truth out loud. I don't give a shit when I'm like talking to a doctor. Like,
yeah,
I will tell them, I don't care. What are you going to do about it? Like, you're not telling nobody. I don't care. Like, I'd rather tell you things you don't want to hear, that you don't even need to hear, just in case, like, they're like, oh no, you did that one thing that one time, that long time ago. We got to do this thing and save your life. I don't know. I don't know how medicine works.
Well, for me, it's when she asked me that, and my response was, well, I was like, you're the professional. Look, I would be concerned if she said, hey, I don't like examining scrotums and
then you're in the
penises because they're,
yeah.
they're like icky or something. Then I'd be like, well, I should maybe get a different doctor then, because I just want you to make sure that my testicles aren't an abnormal size, or I got some weird growth under my fucking penis that I haven't noticed for some reason. You know what I mean? Like, this is not fun for me either, because the whole time that they're there examining you, you're just sort of, I remember just sort of standing there and I'm like, what do I do with my hands? Do I just put them on my hips and then like look at the ceiling or something? Like, what am I doing?
You should Superman that shit. It's what's also awkward is it's super bright in those rooms. If they'd like dim the lights and put some candles on there and had a little mood music, or a little Lil Jon, or something.
Is that Little John? I don't know.
Okay,
let's go with it. Let's go.
No, wait. Oh, wait. That's that's Lil Jon. I'm pretty sure.
I don't believe you.
I actually meant to say a different rapper, but I haven't been listening to rap very often lately.
Yeah, your whiteness is showing right now.
Oh
Be
no.
careful.
Well, look at this. It's so white it's blown out in the camera. So anyway, I appreciate that. I was hoping you were talking shit so that when I came back and I edited it and I listened to the whole thing, I would be like, oh, you son of me.
Oh, you'll have fun listening to it, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I mean,
I know
I probably already confessed to what the worst of it, what I was saying. I was mostly just saying I was happy to be back. That it was good to
good.
We're back. It's nice to be back. Hopefully everybody that was listening doesn't. I was comparing us to hopefully not be like Arrested Development, where I was like, oh, hopefully this isn't a thing where we got canceled and then we came back 10 years later, but it's not as good as it was. Do it. Yeah,
they changed the whole format, and it was all everyone looked like they weren't really into it anymore.
Yeah. So I was saying, hopefully this is not like that. Hopefully it's a better situation.
Well, hopefully it's like that in that I bet that got millions of views, but hopefully it's better quality.
The success, but I'm looking more for quality.
Yeah.
Quality. Anyway, topic. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
How far are we in? We're probably like an hour in already.
Almost. We're at 50 minutes, roughly speaking. Roughly.
Well, we can just do, like I said, we can just do one topic today, unless you came in prepared with something.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was trying to. You came up with such an interesting topic. I was like, well, I wasn't paying attention, and I don't know what's going on in the world. I have a very kind of
tenuous grasp of what's going on.
Yeah, very tenuous. I am a very insulated person. Like, I have my hobbies and I go to work. If I don't hear about it from other people at work, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't listen to Joe Rogan anymore, who's always kind of up on like what's going on in the world. I watch American Dad, like that's been out for like 10 years. I don't know what's going on. Like, if it's not on there, I probably don't know. I'm worried about stuff that happened a while back.
Twitter is what I use to keep up anymore.
I am on Twitter, but I don't really read much on there.
Yeah, that, and then I mean, I read the news more now than I ever have, just because at my job, if I have some downtime, there's not much else to do. So it's like I just hop on.
Oh, really?
Just MSN.com, because it's like a news aggregator, so it just pulls news articles from all over, from different places, and so that's how I probably keep up, honestly, with current events more than I ever have, but not really because I want to, more just because I got nothing else to do. Yeah, nothing else.
Well, and there's plenty of stuff going on in the world.
Like with the cancel culture stuff, it's like how I find out is I log into Twitter and everybody's like hashtag fuck Dr. Seuss or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, what did Dr. Seuss do? And then I have to I have to look it up, because that's the new big like cancel, is they're banning like 6 of his books because of racial depictions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was looking on on my Android phone, if you flick to the left, you have like a Google feed that like they force on you. I've tried to get rid of it and it just comes back because I don't want it taking up like data and stuff.
Yeah.
But there was one about how Dr. Seuss's books are like more popular than they've ever been in like 20 years. And it's probably because like of the controversy and all the talk and stuff.
That's the funny thing, is when people call to cancel these things, then you have another sect of people who are like, well, shit, I better go buy up all these books before I can't get them for some reason. It's like the pandemic toilet paper, everybody's just, they gotta have it, and they don't even know why.
Yeah, it is interesting. Well, but the toilet paper wasn't like canceled. They weren't like, I guess they kind of thought it was going to be canceled. Like we can't get toilet paper.
If there was one thing I would want in an apocalyptic scenario, it's toilet paper.
Obviously.
I remember even when that started, I was looking up, why are people buying so much toilet paper? Like, is the coronavirus give you the raging shits where you're just exploding out of your anus constantly and you need something to sop it all up?
That's what I blame it on.
Like, it's like a psychological thing where people just, a handful of people started buying toilet paper, and other people see them buying all this toilet paper, and they feel, and then
they know that they're like fighting the other people, not the pandemic. And people are so unprepared for any type of emergency that they're like, oh, I don't have any toilet. Like, I only have like 1 roll of toilet paper. So they go buy like 10 rolls or 10 boxes or whatever. It's kind of like in traffic, like when one car slows down, the rest of them slow down, and it takes like miles for it to get going again because of the because of the chain reaction of just like a few cars at the front slowing down. It like, if there's a long line of traffic
and you're sitting like 8 cars back and you can see the green light and you're like, why the fuck are we not moving? Like, what's going on? This light's been green for like 15 seconds.
Yeah. And there was really nothing at the beginning of the chain. It just was,
some mom yelling at her kids behind her because some little boy called his sister a cunt, and then she's trying to deal with that, and the light turns green, and she's like
trying to cancel her kid.
This is what I have to. This is how I get through my day-to-day life. Is I invent stories for scenarios. Like in that scenario, when I'm set at the green light, I'm like, well, I'm gonna give her a break. Her fucking son's calling his sister a cunt, and she's trying to deal with that. Like, I got to give her a second.
It's very
really charitable. It's probably just some kid looking at his fucking cell phone, not paying attention. But I would rather create a more sympathetic scenario that's sort of funny to me, to justify why something's not going the way I want it to.
Yeah, well, that's nice. At least you're trying to be empathetic toward the others on the road. I just rarely accomplish that. I assume that everyone is deliberately trying to fuck me over in the world.
That's the best way to live. I want to just put that out there for all of you listening. If you live any other way, you're not doing it right. Just assume everybody's trying to fuck you over at all times.
Every time. I mean, if your blood pressure is, at a reasonable level, you aren't doing it right.
Yeah. All right. So the topic I brought today.
Yeah. What is it?
So honestly, this is one of those Twitter things where one of the comedians I follow, Heather Ann Campbell, she runs this great video game podcast called How Did This Get Played, where they just look at really bad video games most of the time and then just talk about them for a couple hours. And it's really funny. Anyway, I follow her on Twitter, and she retweeted this CBS News article about experts sounding the alarm on declining birth rates among younger generations, which I've known about for a while, that like I think my generation and younger are just having less and less kids, which is something I've known for a while. But this was just an interesting article that popped up and then sparked me to be like, oh, this would be a fun topic to go over while I was thinking about it this week. And I have the article pulled up here just if I need to reference it for anything. But basically, what it boils down to is that experts were predicting that with the pandemic, there was going to be a big spike in childbirths because we're all locked inside. What else are we going to do aside from Netflix, chill, and fuck? I mean, realistically. And so that didn't happen. I know you look a little puzzled, but that's what my life's. That's what my life's been like.
I wasn't doing that beforehand. I'm not going to just.
You're not magically going to start up when you can't make contact with anybody physically because you don't know if they're going to kill you or not.
Help me.
Well, anyway, they found that's not the case at all. And basically, so in the 1950s, the average woman was having 4 children. And then contemporaneously, now women currently have less than 2 children on average. And basically, people just aren't having kids. So I thought it'd be a fun topic because I'm a married man that does not have kids, and I can't have kids anymore because I had a vasectomy at 30. That was like my age cutoff, where if Vanessa and I didn't want to have kids by 30, I was like, okay, I'm just going to get snipped because I don't want to have fucking kids when I'm this old. This old.
Or that's old.
Or that's old. The asshole.
Yeah, don't be an asshole. Be a vassal.
And so, like, neither of us have any desire to have kids at all. And then you, as far as I know, don't have any children unless you sired one with some woman, then she just never told you.
Who knows? Who knows? No, I don't have any children. I definitely don't have any children. Like, that is not something I'm like curious. Like, I'm not. There wasn't like an encounter that I'm not aware of.
Well, that's good. And now, so for you, not having children, like, so for me, it's by choice. Like, my wife and I think we sort of talked about it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like we considered it maybe when we were younger, and then she was in school. I was working a lot of jobs while we were just trying to stay afloat. And then I think I remember sort of broaching the subject maybe in like our mid-20s, and Vanessa just didn't really have any interest. Like, she didn't feel the desire. She's a type 1 diabetic, and so there's health risks involved with that. And we were also, she's fresh out of school. We have all this fun student loan debt that we're trying to deal with. And it's like, do you really want to add a kid into the mix and then add another financial burden to what you already have going on? And then to justify it further to myself, you start looking at the broader spectrum where you're like, well, the world's fucking overpopulated as it is. Like, why do I need to, why should I be contributing another child into the mix here?
So you used like rationality
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
fend off the wonderful and life-changing um, um, like joy and bliss of immortality through genetic duplication.
Exactly. I mean, and you can also, I feel like both of us are a bit of a genetic minefield where the genetics in my family aren't awesome. Everybody in my family's overweight, high blood pressure, fucking depressed, like most of the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, it's not like I am an all-star genetic specimen that should really be creating more life. And then Vanessa, for as amazing as she is, she, you know, there's a risk that she or our child could have a fucking chronic condition that is incurable if like they were also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I'll tell you, it's not fucking fun to deal with. And I mean, I don't deal with it beyond looking at it from the outside and from a support stance, but you know, having to deal with something like that your whole life is a huge financial burden, and you know, it creates a cascade of other health conditions if you don't manage it appropriately. And even when you do manage it appropriately, the inevitable conclusion is you're going to have more health problems than the average healthy person, quote unquote. So anyway, it's like you just add all these factors up and you're like,
sure,
it's not, it's, you almost feel like you're gambling when you have the child from a genetic standpoint. You're like, maybe the kid's totally healthy and it'll be great. Or they could come out with fucking type 1 diabetes and Down syndrome. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a particular statistic on those things, and you might be higher on the diabetes part. I don't think there's a reason to be worried about Down syndrome, particularly for you guys, unless there's something I don't know about. You know, like you are, you look a little, never mind.
You look a little like off the spectrum.
I don't know. Maybe you're a little downsy yourself, but the only counter I have to that is your intelligence and rationality is something the world needs more of. And so while it's a burden on you to potentially do this, and it would be a burden on your child because life is a fucking burden, no matter what you have, you know, like nobody's perfect and everybody's taking a risk when they have children. But the people who are having children, I don't know if you can wrap your head around this. I don't know if you can wrap your head around this, but they don't put that much thought into it. And so what ends up happening is there's just going to be more people on the earth anyway. But I guess in America, the replacement rate is declining. And so the total population will start going down. But you know, it's not like this this massive amount of people. Like not everybody is going to have kids, and that's always been the case. And it's the reason that the population was increasing partly is not because everybody's having, you know, 2.1 kids. It's because some people were having 4, 8, 10 kids, and some people weren't. There's always a proportion of males in a population that just will not mate. In, you know, most species, and because there's competition and hierarchies, and women are, you know, trying to find the best genetic match for themselves. And so it's definitely kind of an interesting aspect to try to figure out, like, what are the consequences, like why does it matter if people are having more or less babies. And from a political standpoint, which is a lot of what they're talking about, is like, what are the economic complications and what are the financial kind of impacts when everybody is kind of communally taking care of older people, and now we have less younger people to pay for the older people because the older people didn't save enough for retirement, and so they're living off of Social Security. What was interesting is I was watching another article, or I was watching a video. It was like a CNBC or something, a whole, you know, like 10-minute video about it. And they were talking about the current Social Security system and how, you know, you have to be funding it. They're like living paycheck to paycheck in that system, essentially. So as people are using it, people have to be funding it like in real time.
Wasn't it like
the savings is running away?
Isn't the previous generation essentially fund it for the next generation? Like the
the
current generation is funded by the we're funding the Social Security for the people who are retired right now, and they funded it for the people before them. So, you know, and that was one of the things that's like an argument for why we do need to have kids, like you were saying, is like an economical reason, because
it's a workforce.
If we didn't have, you know, if there's birth rates plummet, that means that like our generation isn't going to have as many people paying into the system that we would be utilizing that we paid into for the people before us. But I think the flip side of that is, you look at, I think the average cost of raising a child currently is like $200,000 on like the lower end. So it's like, if you're smart and you take that money because you didn't have kids and you invest it or save it in retirement, then theoretically you shouldn't really need the Social Security system as much, or if at all, depending on your financial
if you were to save it. But people are
people
notoriously shitty savers. Also, if you think about it, I'm paying into Social Security with the assumption that that is some benefit to me, because I don't have kids, and so like all of my taxes are going toward things that I don't get much benefit out of. At least maybe I can get some Social Security. But if the system is breaking down to the point where they need more people behind me paying for me, then why don't you just give me my fucking money back? Just have that Social Security be a personal savings account or a personal retirement account, and that money's still in the economy in the form of stocks and bonds and whatnot. But the problem is, it's not. The government puts it into a pool of communal, budget, and then they decide how that gets pushed toward individuals.
Well, it'd be
as opposed to, for me,
like ideally they would just have a system for tracking how much you paid into the system, and that's just what you get back. It's like,
plus
the
interest that they got for, because like when a bank takes your money, they invest it. They don't just sit it in a bank or in a vault and it doesn't make money. So if I'm giving the government money, it was kind of like when I had unemployment, where I had paid into unemployment for 10 years, and then I was unemployed due to my own decision making, which was also a rational kind of decision for the betterment of my life, not a sudden horrible at my job and I got fired. And I got no unemployment even after appealing, and it's because of their rules. And I get that the idea is that my unemployment went toward other people who are unemployed, but like, why can't I have that money? Like, I paid a bunch of money to a thing that's literally just called unemployment. I was unemployed. I was planning on getting a job. I was filling out the paperwork, doing the applications. And it was just kind of like, it allowed me to see how true it was for other people who had done the same thing, who had told me, like, you don't get unemployment if you quit. And like, sometimes quitting is a good thing. People should be able to move somewhat freely around economic markets as employable people. I'd worked for my whole life. I wasn't a deadbeat. And maybe 6 months of getting some of my money back as unemployment would have been beneficial to me. But that's how it works. And so that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder.
But I mean, this is just the system that we have. And so it's
what are you going to do?
It would take the entire society exploding and then rebuilding to change anything really meaningful.
Well, or it'll take another 20, 40 years before they realize that the system, where they make some changes, and they're like, well, okay, so now we don't have Social Security anymore, we'll have this other system, or we have such a low population of employed people that we got to do this or something like that. I don't know. I think at some point you run into like actual physical barriers, like where you literally don't have the money, or you literally have too many old people or something. And they're dying on the streets, and you have to pick them up, and you create this new job where you're just burying old people. I don't, like, things will happen, and you don't have you can try to mitigate reality in life, but at some point, you're going to come up with some barrier you're going to just have to deal with. So I don't know. I'm retiring. I think part of it is also like people have kids so that they can not just take care of them financially, because that's expensive to have somebody who can be a nurse to you. But it's a lot cheaper if you have a kid that you can go live with and they sort of, help you with whatever physical needs you have. I think not everybody goes to a retirement home. A lot of people end up, getting help from their children.
And that's like an argument I hear a lot, right? Is that, people have kids so that then, especially if you're decent to them when you've raised them and they want to help you when you're older, you have that extra support network. But
or just me, friends, it's people to hang out with. I don't know.
It's like, but loved now ones. Now you've had this child against its own free will. Like a child doesn't ask to be born. It just happens. Yeah. And then, so it's like you raise the kid with this expectation that they're also then going to flip the script and take care of you, maybe when you're older, if you live that long. And I was like, that's a fucked up thing to just add this extra burden onto your child. Suddenly it's like, hey, I created you against your will and raised you, and now you're going to take care of me.
Yeah.
When I hit retirement age, especially if I didn't make a lot of wise decisions and can't take care of myself properly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I've never really liked that reasoning that I hear from people, because that's something that I've had people say to me when I tell them that I'm not going to have kids. They're like, well, what are you going to do when you're so old that if you live long enough where you get to a point where you can't take care of yourself very well? And then I just tell them the truth. I was like, I'll just fucking kill myself. Exactly. Like,
or whatever.
If I get to a point where
you'll struggle, like, I don't know,
or you die, or
you'll pay, maybe you'll have enough retirement that you can live in a retirement home. I don't
like,
there's lots of other things to happen, but
it doesn't have to be that retirement home either. But
oh, really? I don't know. I don't know. I think I'd rather be alive. I don't know. It'd have to get really bad for me to like actually want to like not be around anymore.
Well, that's how I look at it. Yeah. I want to live as long as I can just function independently and take care of myself. But if I get to this point where I'm just shitting my pants all the time and I can fucking barely walk because I'm so fragile and frail, it's like, just fucking kill me, dude. Like, what am I living for? To watch some fucking more TV every day? Like, maybe read an extra book or two with my failing eyeballs? Like, in my decrepit brain where I'm barely comprehending what's even going on anyway? Like, fucking kill me already.
Yeah, dementia and Alzheimer's are kind of like no winners. Like, you don't get, there's no real plus side to that. But I think the idea of like your kids taking care of you is not, it's a traditional family obligation that I toss aside immediately. Exactly. I don't give a fuck if you're my family. If you're not a good person, I don't want to be your friend. But some parents are good people. We just don't, you and I haven't necessarily like had that experience. So there are other people who have like, they're like happy to help their parents. Like, their parents were actually really supportive and they didn't ask them to take care of them when they're older. They just do because they really
want to. Exactly.
And that, I think, is lovely. I think that's wonderful. I think I have a much better relationship with my mom, and I've been thinking about, in the next 10 to 20 years, if she starts to become less independent, or she, she's like ridiculously healthy and like very, very like cognitively there for, being in her, early to mid 60s. But, by the time she's 80, I don't know what it's going to be like. And I also don't have a ton of obligations and a ton of stuff. And at this point, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't help her. I kind of think I would. I think I would be happy to spend, 10 years taking care of her and getting to do something that's kind of, I don't know, selfless for a few years. And I don't know though. I'm just recently thinking about it that way. And I didn't have that relationship with her before, but now we've become much closer. And I wouldn't want to see her suffering and alone and, dying like that. I don't think that would happen because I think she has that relationship with my other siblings and she's already planning on living very close to us. So I think it'll be a fairly, functional transition as she gets older.
Well, do you have do you have like a fear for yourself? Because how old are you? Like 36, right? Okay, I was saying I thought you were only like 4 or 5 years older than I.
Yeah.
But 36. I mean, theoretically, you've got at least a solid 30 to 40 years before you would seriously have to consider being put in a situation where you would need somebody to help take care of you. And so it's like, is that a fear that crops up in the back of your mind at all, since you don't have any children? Like, what
not
are you
really
gonna do?
If my fear is that I'm going to regret not having children because I want children, not because of what they'll do for me when I'm older. I think that I would be a good parent, kind of on an emotional level. The financial thing is one of the main reasons that keeps me from it, and the crippling fear of intimacy and lack of trust in females and myself in relationships. So there's like two main, factors that that keeps me single in my mind, psychological and financial. And so, if I can get over those two things, I think that at some point I might want to have kids, but I'm okay if I don't end up having kids, because I think I have really, I like the relationships I have. I don't need to necessarily have purpose and meaning in other things. I have a lot of self-reliant things that keep me going. I really enjoy what I do with my day-to-day life. Generally speaking, I'm not, fully content, but I think that's probably good. And then I also have good relationships with my friends and my family. The family members that I have good relationships with.
Yeah.
And that keeps me kind of happy and going. And I don't have a hole to fill with a kid. I don't. I think that there's, I think I could have a lot of joy raising someone and seeing them, do it and make it and get older and do better than my parents. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm just going to do that because I want to. That's a pretty selfish reason to have a kid, is to like prove my parents wrong and to try to get this kind of elusive joy out of it. I think that it's important to think about really what's best for them, and it would have to be the right circumstance for me to end up having a kid. But I think I'm saving for retirement. I'm young enough that I can kind of keep working on my career and figuring out, how to make enough money to not be destitute as an elderly person. But I don't know. It's only in the most recent years that I've ever even thought I would be 80 or 90 years old.
I know you have to. That's part of.
It's long-term thinking that I didn't do when I was younger. Like,
well, and
most people don't.
You have to think about whether you're even going to make it that far. So sometimes when I start to think about it, like, oh Jesus, like if Vanessa dies first and I'm fucking alone because I don't really have much family, but then it's like you have to get to that point. I could die in a fucking car crash today. Like, it's one of those things where it's almost you almost have to sort of have it in the back of your mind, because you need to prepare for it and plan for it as best you can. But you also have to keep in mind that it may not matter at all, because you don't really know when you're going to go out. So like aneurysms run in my dad's side of the family. Like his dad died from an aneurysm when he was like, I think in his 50s or 60s. I have like an aunt that died of an aneurysm it's like, statistically, I'm probably going to fucking die before I even retire.
At some point you're going to die. So, yeah. I mean, I think that just might not be true. And then what do you do? If you do end up being, 70, 80 and you're still independent, but you really didn't put any effort into making it a decent way to live, and you can't work, that's why retirement kind of exists, is because you physically can't, you can barely drive, there's certain things that kind of suck, but you're still running around. Well, I don't know.
See, I also save for retirement, even if I don't plan to use it. Like if I assume that I'm going to die before I would have the chance to use it, that just means I'm saving money for Vanessa to use. So when I die, there's this nice nest egg that she can do something with that will maybe help her. We all know that we can fill the holes in our hearts from the loss of loved ones with greenbacks. So
obviously,
I think that she would get over my death easier and faster if she just had money to plug the holes in her heart with. So that's why I do, the retirement savings is maybe I'll get to use it, or maybe I'll die and, it'll be for her to use.
Or you both will use it. Like,
or
because you're sharing a life together. I don't know. And she's probably has a retirement fund as well going, I would assume.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm on the kind of going back to what you said a little bit ago. I'm on the same wavelength with you as far as children, whereas like part of the reason, one of the many reasons I don't have kids is Vanessa and I recognize that we're kind of selfish. Like we don't want to have kids because we like going to the movies. We like playing the latest video games. We like buying new like we like buying this cool shit for ourselves that we can enjoy and spend time doing that we wouldn't be able to, like we would have to sacrifice because we have children. Like I'm so busy writing books, spending time with her and the dogs, watching TV and movies and playing video games. Like I have all this shit that just keeps me busy all the time. And then I sometimes think about having a kid because there is like there's a paternal instinct in most of us, I think, where we like the idea of having an offspring and like teaching it things and showing it the way of the world and thinking we would be fucking awesome at it and raise a great, like, that sounds fun on like a small level for me. But then I realized, that means I'm going to have to give up some of this other stuff. And those things don't weigh out in the favor of me deciding to have a child. But I think like we're the godparents of my sister-in-law's son. And so if something crazy happened and his parents were killed or whatever, and like we were suddenly had this new responsibility, it's like I would step up and do it if I have to, and I would want to do a good job, but I don't think I would place myself there of my own accord, really.
I think a lot of people they get bored with just playing video games and stuff, and they go, well, what is going to happen, what's the future like, and what can I leave behind? And there's a huge biological thing about pushing your genetics into the future. It's all of evolution has led toward that, and that's what your genes want. But we are lucky enough to live in a wealthy enough, healthy enough society where you can play video games for most of your life. You don't have to necessarily worry about dying tomorrow in a horrible famine and in a war. And so having 1,000 kids is not necessarily the way that things are going to continue. Other people, there's billions of people on the earth. You're not responsible for making sure the species continues. There's no weight on your shoulder related to that.
Well, I think some people do it too as like a way to carry on their legacy because they're not really doing anything of importance or note maybe in their lives. So for me, it's like that hole has been filled for me with my writing. That's sort of the legacy I would like to think I'll leave behind, is that these books will always exist that I put effort into. And it's like maybe 20 years after my death, some new audience will find those, and it carries on in some way. But now we're heading into, I think, the other side of the conversation, which is, so like when I think about people not having children, there's these like logistical reasons, which I feel like we've been talking about. There's the economic reasons as far as why not having them can be good or bad. But then now we're getting to sort of like the fun philosophical part of it, where, and this is where I probably spend the most time thinking about kids, is for multiple aspects, because if you think about it, the world fucking sucks, generally speaking. So it's like having a child, you're putting them into the world. You can read the news and just see all these horrible things happening all the time. Like we're going to have a water crisis probably in the next 40 to 50 years, where water is going to be a very precious commodity because of how fucking willy-nilly we just throw it about and use it these days. And then, you have to worry about global warming. You have just like the state of the world is only getting worse. And so why would you want to have a child that you then have to worry about I don't have to worry about the future of any of my fucking kids. If we have a water crisis in 50 years, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to be dead probably. So I don't care. I mean, like, I don't want to actively contribute to making things worse. Like, I'm not like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. It's more like, I just don't have to worry about it. It's like something, it's a burden I don't have to have on my shoulders because I'm not going to have anybody that I'm leaving behind that I have to worry about because the world sucks. And, shit, what was the other thing? There's something else I was thinking of too. Oh, and then the other side of it too that I think about is why do we all feel like we're so important that we have to have children? Like why does the human species feel like it's so important that it has to keep just continuing on? Like people
Well,
people value
yeah.
like people put too much value in their own lives. Like they like in the grand scheme, we're fucking insignificant. Like us as individuals don't really matter to almost the entire world. The only people you matter to are the people that are close to you. So it's like there's there's not much of a reason to continue on having children and procreating because really we're not that important. I mean, we're just parasites on the planet for the most part. And
but species don't procreate for justification, rational reasons. It has nothing to do with
the problem
that.
is I think about it that way too much, and then I'm like, this is further.
Yeah, that's
it
why
reinforces my opinion on not having children because why am I so important that I need to create another life or two to carry on for some reason?
There's probably a reason why the height of hormonal action happens before the frontal lobe is fully formed, because procreation is more important than rationality for genes. Like we're slaves to our biology in a very detached way. Like we don't species have only recent, like only humans are sitting around going like, what does it matter? Like the genes don't give a shit about any of that. That's just, it's just the continuation. It's a momentum. There's all of life is just struggling to continue itself. That's reproduction in general.
Life is
that's how it works.
Struggle. Exactly.
Well, of course it is, but that's always been the case. And I don't watch the news and worry about these things. And so to me, I don't see a world that's falling into decay. I see a world that has all sorts of unknown futures. And, as things are potentially hazardous in the future, things have also gotten really good for humans as far as the ability to solve these problems on huge scales. Now, we might be doing that to such excesses that we're all going to suffer in the end, but so what? But there's no guarantee that any species or any structure is going to continue past any particular point anyway. We could all get blown up by a volcano tomorrow, and that doesn't stop this strong desire for people to have children.
The problem is it's and this is what you were talking about like towards the beginning of the conversation, is a lot of people having kids didn't want to have kids. They're just stupid or made bad decisions, and now they're just kind of like, it'd be nice if people stopped, and which you can't stop and think when you're about to fuck because your fucking brain's not wired to think rationally and then also be horny at the same time. And so
really
that's why you could yeah, exactly. If you stop with a boner and you're like, wait a second, it ruins the whole thing. But if people did just put like a little bit more stock into it and just like stop and ask yourself, like, do you really want to have a kid? Also, why should you have a kid? Like what reason do you have for yourself to have this kid? Like what makes you think that you should have one? Like I wish that we had it's fucked up, but like when China had the law where you could only have one kid and then you had to pay an extra tax for additional kids. It's like I don't think we should have a system like that, but I wish that there was a system in place where we like spent more time educating people on like how to raise a child, at least not properly, but like more on the right track, because we have all these, when you're a stupid 16-year-old that fucked up and then had a kid, and maybe your parents are religious, so you couldn't have an abortion. And so now you have this child and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. I mean,
sure.
And so and then that kid just grows up with a shitty situation.
Yeah.
And then will most likely also make bad decisions because they just weren't taught any better, because they were raised by somebody who.
Yeah. I think you might be missing a key thing that we're talking about here, which is literally what you're talking about is happening. the birth rate is going down because people are thinking more about it, people are more educated, and financial issues are coming up. And so the population or the average amount of children people are having is under two children per household.
Well, yeah, no, that's why.
So that's literally the whole, what's happening right now is people are thinking
good.
about it more. They're having children later in life. And the general, like, while I think depression is going up, and suicide had a bit of a peak here during this particular time, but worldwide, with the education of women and the standards of living going up with better technologies and things like that, the general well-being of people is like the birth rates are going down in lots of third world countries when as they educate women and the well-being starts going up. So the trend is actually what you're talking about, and things are improving as far as a kind of a potential trend. So I just don't have I have a general optimistic look in that there's no way to control it either way. Like it doesn't really it doesn't matter if I go, well, the whole world's dying tomorrow, or if I go, everything's perfect tomorrow. Neither of those things are true, and neither of those things have a ton of bearing on how I live today anyway, because all I'm trying to do is live a good life every day that I can. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of just a justification to think that like everything is going to be terrible for a kid down the line. You just don't really know. It's not necessarily true. Like you have a better life than people 50 years ago. There's no reason to think that your kids wouldn't have a wonderful life, or at least appreciate being alive like you do.
I think I agree. I think
that doesn't mean you should
like
have kids, but it's also just you're kind of creating a scenario where your kid has a horrible life. That's an imagination.
The scenario that I create is just based off of like the general state of the world, which it's more just informed by the science that just shows like if we continue on the trajectory that we're on, that things are just going to keep getting worse. And so it's like unless we do start making changes now, which it doesn't seem like sometime like some people are trying to enact changes to prevent like further damage from global warming and things like that, but it's not enough, at least at this point in time, to really reverse anything. It's more like just kind of delaying a little bit. And so it's like that's more when I look at the philosophical side of it. It's just from the state of the world, it's like the probability is that things are not going to be awesome.
Do you mean the inhabitability of the earth?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because I don't know if the like I haven't read anything that says global warming is going to kill every human being on the earth. What it will do is cause change, and that change will probably mean that geographies and other things change and people die, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all human beings on earth will die.
No, I think the global warming will attribute to it, but I think the water crisis will be the bigger concern, because they've shown that like with the way that like even with desalinating the ocean like they have been doing, it's not enough to keep up with how much water is being like wasted basically and used,
like because of farms probably.
Well, from farming.
I think we'll get away from massive cow farms eventually.
Yeah, and that's a topic I have to.
Yeah, we can talk about that sometime.
Some point, because I've watched a lot of documentaries.
Cow farming
mostly around
very resource intensive.
Oh yeah, well there's a lot of vegan documentaries that I've watched that go into like the science of all that, which was pretty eye-opening for me. But yeah, they were just saying that it's like the farming and the reason why we have to farm so much is because of overpopulation. So it's like when I see articles like the CBS News one where they talk about how experts are like worried about how we're past the replacement threshold. It's like, yeah, because that's good. There's too many of us. There's too many people on the planet. Like, but we need to lower the numbers a little bit.
What I think is interesting is that humans, just like every species, react to their environment. And so as species start to recognize certain lacks of resources or whatever, they start to conceptualize futures, they make decisions. And part of that means not having as many children. That's just like a natural reaction to our assumptions about the future. And so as we start to worry about overpopulation, the certain population of people will just deal with that by not having as many children, and then that's like a natural remedy to that situation. But even if you don't have like that type of more deliberate version of that, you're going to run into natural boundaries all over the place. Like if we start running low on water and people die, that will be a boundary that we will deal with. And just like when, you know, we had a boundary of not having enough food for large city dwellers, and we solved that problem through massive, you know, farming. And now we have an excess of that. We've gone overboard when it comes to having too much food available, and it's getting wasted, and it's resource intensive, and we're you know, getting rid of trees and blah 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 blah. Like it's just going to be like this, you know, it's like a graph. And to me, that graph is always going to be there, and there's always going to be these little, you know, peaks and valleys of like struggles that, like, all of life is trying to kill you. And that's why people are sexually able to have children early in life, is because if they weren't, we'd never have any humans, because we would all die eventually.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like if you're not worried about the future, then why are you worried about the future? You know, you're like, I don't have any kids, so I don't have to worry about the future. But then you are worried about the future, which is why you're not having kids. So it's, you know, like, to me, it's like having a kid is totally, it's like it's a positive thing if it can be positive, and it's a negative thing if it's negative, and if it comes out of, you know, exceptionally selfish reasons, and they can't be taken care of very well. I also think it's also kind of a socialistic, communistic kind of thing to be thinking that it's my obligation to take care of old people, or my obligation to have children for the future. Human beings are not necessarily sitting there going around going, well, if I don't have kids and the population goes down, then they can't take care of the elderly in the future. Like, you know, politics thinks like that. Political people think like that. Governments think like that. But I don't know if people are sitting there going like other than eugenics and things like that, and forced breeding programs, like, we're going to get what we fucking get. Like, you know, political systems are going to have to deal with changing populations. We're not going to stay stagnant and stable, and everyone's going to pay exactly this amount of taxes, and everyone's going to be happy, and then we're just going to, you know, use resources perfectly. There's no utopia to like hold me accountable to.
And that's where like my fear in saying that I wish people thought about more about having kids was like, it's exciting to see that people, like you said, they, like this article shows, is that people are having less kids because of they're thinking about it, or financial reasons and stuff. But it's the people that they feel like they have to have kids because they're being told these things, right? They sort of feel like this pressure from,
there's a lot of pressure to have,
because there's probably people who've read this article, right? And they're like, oh shit, like they're like, oh god, maybe I should fucking have a kid or something. Because I feel like it's typically the people who aren't thinking through having a kid are probably, not all of them, but generally probably a little bit more weak-minded, or maybe a little more stupid, to put it blatantly. And so they're going to probably be more pressured or easily convinced into having children that they don't necessarily really want, like on a personal level, but they just feel like they kind of have to because they're being convinced they are, which I think is part of the reason why I bet you the people who are still having a lot of children are like Catholics, because they don't believe in birth control, and they just, you know, they just keep fucking having kids. And even like I feel like the religious sects are going to be the ones that are going to be having a lot of children still, just because of their beliefs, and that's the community that they typically build themselves around, is family communities where you have this obligation to having children. And so it's like those are the populations that I would hope would think more about it, and maybe not cave into the pressure, the societal pressure, I guess, than if they don't necessarily really feel like they want to have children. And then also just the more poverty stricken people that tend to have a lot of children too. It's like,
Yeah.
Think about what life you're really going to give your child if you can't even afford to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's never going to happen. It's like a pipe dream, really.
I think so.
It's exciting to see that more people are thinking about it and not having kids. But it's like, I also want that to continue with the populations that are going to create the most vulnerable children, because they're not going to have the means that they need.
Like if you're looking at population from like a overhead view, like if you were God, do you want to have less but more quality lives, or do you want to have more people who are going to statistically be able to survive really harsh environments? So because there are harsh environments, and the earth without major technological interventions is going to kill you, like we've been able to live longer and happier lives and more healthy lives because of our science and
well, it's like a luxury we have.
Other
we
things.
Put ourselves outside of
so you don't need
nature.
to have kids. But if you're, if 3 out of 5 children are dying at birth, the odds are you need to just keep pumping them out, and that's a different kind of lifestyle. So to me, it's not necessarily like immoral for people to act on their biological imperative to have children. It is immoral to abuse them, and to it is immoral to somewhat be completely dependent on other human beings who could at some point retract their charity. And like if we get rid of welfare programs and all these people who have kids now can't afford to feed them, you now made a decision to have children that you couldn't afford, and they're going to die. And I don't think that's good for psychology and for society. So it's kind of like, I think I'd rather have less people, more quality, and some type of utopia that involves, a wonderful balance between all these factors. But that's not going to happen. And so really what you got to think about is, how do you want to live your life? Like, fuck everybody else. I'm not in control of jack shit other than, this conversation and maybe the next, couple hours of my life. I got to go walk around other people. I got to get on the road. We're navigating a treacherous existence. And kids, I love my brother's kids. You probably love your nieces and nephews. They're super cool. It's fun to watch them get older. When you bond with a young person, there's a lot of kind of learning you can do about yourself and about them and about life through different generational relationships. And I don't want to necessarily just throw it off the table. Like, I'm never going to have that with, my own kids, but I also am not going to be like, but what's interesting is that as I get older and stuff, there's less time. And so those decisions might be made a little bit more rapidly. Like, people tend to get into relationships and get married and have kids a lot quicker when they're older, because they fucking have to. Like, they don't have that long
biologically time. You're being forced to if you want to.
Yeah. So. And then we didn't even talk about, like, as women start making decisions to have children much older, it's a more difficult
health risk
scenario. Yeah. It's a health risk. It leads toward more complications and more potential things like autism and things like that. And so, or Down syndrome, other chromosomal issues. There's, it's interesting to be rational. Like, that's all we're doing. We're just thinking about it more than some people and less than others.
It's funny when you talk to certain, like some people, when you do just deliver just such a rational explanation for why you're not having kids, and some people like get kind of
there's emotions
thrown off about that. Because I think they do approach it from like an emotional,
and there's traditions and all that.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's easy for me to just rationalize it so much, as I don't have any traditions really within, like, I don't have any family traditions that I've carried on. I'm not close to like any of my family. So for me, it's just like what I wanted and then what Vanessa wanted, which she comes from like the opposite background almost, where it comes from a family that's religious with a lot of traditions. So it's interesting that even she was able to sort of break the mold enough to realize that rationally this wasn't something that she wanted for multiple reasons. Which is one of the things I love about her, is that she's can think for herself. She didn't bend to the will of Christianity and familial obligations and traditions.
Sure. Well, I think that's that kind of thinking is why less, people are having children, but then eventually what'll happen is, like the kids of the people who, like, I'm curious, like, because it typically like goes in cycles. Like you're going to have, like, we have baby boomers who are like, we all got to have kids. The world is, terrifying with World War
Well, it's because
II.
everybody came back from World War II and they were ready to fuck.
And they were happy to, be alive. And they were, there were systems in place for people to meet each other. And there were still a lot of religion in the world, in the US, I mean. And so there was this circumstance that people adapted to. And now we're adapting to new circumstances, but that's always the case. And people are just going to adapt to the next situation. We're going to have a ton where all the baby boomers are going to die in the next 20 to 30 years, and we're going to have, you and I will be fucking old, and we'll be the ones everybody's bitching about having to take care of. And then they're and there'll be these interesting technologies that will exist, and we'll be able to drink our piss and live forever. And who knows?
I'm just hoping to have like a robot take care of me. Hopefully I won't need an organic being. They'll have created androids that can just
Japan's been dealing with this for way longer than we have. And you know what they're developing to help old people and to help people around the world or around their lives is fucking robots. That's exactly what they're, the leading robotics people, because they have a lot of need for automating what humans used to do. And it's an interesting economic thing, because they're worried that people won't spend as much, and so there'll be less need for certain jobs, right? Like in retail and online selling and stuff. But to me, that's another one of those natural barriers you don't get to control. You don't get to control spending just because you want more people in the economy spending more money for this growth, and then so we can take most of the taxes and put it toward military operations. Like if we're worried about money, let's look at the budget and how much money we're actually spending on all the different categories of the government. You could easily fund Social Security with the money that they have. They just, they like their money. They like their budgets. They don't want to take money away from different sectors. They don't want to privatize and get rid of jobs. Like, they want to grow as much as possible, just like, huge entities want to do. And that's not my responsibility. I'm not here to make the government more powerful. That's what they want me to do. That doesn't matter.
Fight the system, Joe. Fight the system.
Well, I'm not fighting anything. That's the whole point. I don't want to fight. I want to be peaceful. I want to have a nice life. I don't want to be constantly worried about.
I'm at that point where I just kind of wanted to be left alone. Like, I just want to go to work, contribute what I can, and then just come home and just not be bothered by people other than people I want to be bothered by.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's like the dream.
Yeah, exactly. That's nice. Why, like, where we bought our house, we bought it out in this like small farming community. It's fucking awesome. It's just quiet out here. Nobody really bugs you. Like, everybody's just doing their own thing.
Well, suburbia exists for people to get the fuck away, and that usually happens when you get old enough to afford a home. And that's why I live in an apartment, because I have no money. And
you're in the poverty. You're like in this weird poverty cycle because you spend way more on rent than I probably do on mortgage. But the problem is you can't afford a down payment because you're paying so much on your goddamn rent. But if you could afford the down payment to save money, you could buy a house and save yourself.
Well, and if that was
always our struggle.
If I had a roommate, I could probably save, $600-700 a month, but I don't like people. So roommates are so scary.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. It's tough.
Sitting there going, you have to like be here and make messes and talk. And if I don't know you, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be around you, but I need to solve that problem as well. I don't think we have time for recommendations. We're already way over what we were planning here, but it's been a lot of fun. We're at like 100 and not 100. I don't count minutes by hundreds. That would be weird. That'd be too much math.
We're at 2 hours.
Yeah, almost 2 hours exactly.
Well, we might have to rethink how many topics we bring, because this was just one topic. I mean, had you also come with like a full-blown topic, we would have ran out of time.
No, but
unless it's a smaller, more intricate. I mean, this is a pretty broad. Even when I came up with the topic, I was like, this is going to be something we're not even going to be able to talk about every facet of it, because it's so interwoven into so many other topics, actually,
Yeah.
when you think about it, because we already started talking about the economics of it, and then
Yeah.
government spending and
and
social programs.
Smarter people than us are actually looking into this. So
no, it's true. We're just chatting. We're just
chatting.
fleeting. We're just fleeting
it
the
up.
thoughts.
Fleeters. We're fleeting thoughters.
Well, I have I think we could do recommendations real quick.
Yeah,
because
please do.
Because I was thinking we just recently watched a really great movie. If you're into horror movies, it's called The Vigil, and it just came out recently. And we watched it last week, and it was a really good. It's about what I liked about the movie is it sort of gives you a peek behind the curtain of Jewish faith and culture that you don't typically see unless you're obviously embedded in it. And the film is about a man being hired to be a shomer, or as they pronounce it in the movie, a shaima. Shaima.
Oh, that's nice.
And which I'd never even heard of before I watched the movie. I'd never heard that term. I didn't know what it was. But what he does is they hire the shomers to basically watch over the body of a recently deceased individual until the funeral service is able to come and take the body. It's like a kind of a spiritual thing to watch the body to make sure that evil spirits or nothing happens to the body basically before it can be cared for properly. And so in the movie, he is hired kind of reluctantly because he has a dark history that I wouldn't go into without spoiling the movie. But he basically has this history where he's kind of outside of his Jewish community when he used to be deeply embedded into it. And so he gets hired because he really needs the money, basically, to watch over this body. And then it sort of delves into kind of this is where the movie starts to weaken a little bit because it becomes a very kind of jump scare, traditional like demon possession kind of movie. But just like the foundation of what it's built around was so interesting. And it's not super jump scare heavy. There's a few moments that are like, whoa, but really it's just a great movie that has a lot of dread and suspense built up in it. And then it's a pretty interesting exploration of like grief involving this character's particular history. So it's really good if people want to watch it. I don't know. I think it's on a streaming service. I can't remember, like Shudder or something like that. I don't remember where we watched it, but
it's called The Vigil.
The Vigil, but it's really good.
Super Jewy. Oh gosh, I should watch it just for the Judaism.
It's one of those movies where as I was watching it, I was like researching on my phone because I was like, Shomer, what is that? Like, what is that? And so then I was like Googling it. Words. So it's kind of cool, like to.
That's your next series is
the Shaima.
Yeah, your next it'll be like the Jewish sin series or something. I thought you were gonna say something about necrophilia. So I have a recommendation, and it is a book series called Dune.
Ooh,
have you ever read any Dunes?
So I read about maybe half the first one. It was so dry and boring that I put it down and never went back to it. But I know of it, like, but it's
so difficult.
So those difficult older books that are like classics, man. Writing was just so different back then, and it's like,
well, his writing is not like anybody else's writing.
Yeah,
like you go into a fucking weird poetic world when you read Frank Herbert. But there's supposedly a movie coming out based on the first book.
It's being
that
done
has
by,
a ton of money. So
Denis Villeneuve, he did Blade Runner 2049. He did that movie The Arrival.
Well, that was good
really
too.
good.
Yeah.
So I think the movie's gonna be really good because
I hope so.
This is a guy who knows sci-fi and does a really good job with it. So
good.
I heard that the original film that came out, was it like in the late 80s, maybe early 90s? Yeah. I can't remember. Was pretty good too. It was just really weird because it's done by what's that guy who did Twin Peaks? Why can't I think of his fucking name right now?
I never remember that guy's name.
Yeah,
he's super good.
But he's notorious for just doing weird shit. Like I don't know if you watched like that kind of the redo that they did, or not redo, but like the sequel series for Twin Peaks where they brought it back a couple of years ago.
I didn't
did
watch
like a new
that.
season.
No,
dude, that shit gets so out there.
Yeah. I didn't really watch Twin Peaks, but I did watch a bit of the like all the little clips you can watch of the original Dune movie, and I can see why. The problem is like adapting the Dune books is ridiculously hard because it's super dense. It's very complicated. It's very like there's a whole language and a whole world of words that don't exist in reality.
It seems like something that they should have turned into a TV series, which they're doing more and more with books, where they
would need to do anything with it.
Yeah, let's take this book and then just turn it into like a 10 episode season of something where you have 10 hours to explore the whole story instead of 2 hours.
Yeah, I think it took him like 5 years to write the first book because it has a history that exists under the whole thing that you like learn about slowly throughout the whole series. So the whole thing is like one very cohesive concept that never breaks away from itself and is it's one of the books that I read that is I have to take breaks from for like I'll read a couple books in between because I get so into it and get so confused and I get so like annoyed and then I love it and then it's very like it's very kind of love hate kind of a book. It's once you kind of get into it, it's kind of like it's kind of endearing and you know so much and you have so much of this like that's why like the fans of these books are so
die hard
because they've invested so much thought power into understanding what's going on. You can't fuck with it. It's so intricate and well done and in depth that like you don't get to put a ton of like interpretation onto it other than your own understanding of what's going on. It's like the people who really know about it are constantly trying to talk about it so they can figure it out. It's kind of like the Bible or something like where there's so many messages and so many stereotypes and so many things that are trying to be portrayed that it's once you can get through it, it's its own world and I think it's worth trying. And if you don't like it, don't worry about it. A lot of people don't like it. My brother could not get into it. You're not into it. I have a buddy named Chris who like we talk about it because he's really into he's read it multiple times. And it's a lot about like political power is kind of the main message of it. Political power and environmentalism.
It's one of those things where the story and the world were fascinating. It's just the writing style.
The writing is super
that's
complex. You have to let it go. You have to like not try to understand everything while you're reading it. You can't pick it apart because it's really more of a concept. Like the whole thing is like now you get it. Like you get it eventually. You kind of have to piece it together. It's not every sentence isn't important necessarily.
Do you know how many books are in the series? Because I know he died and then his son has been like he wrote more after his death.
I think the son ended up doing like odes to the world and like histories of these different things that aren't exactly the main story. I think there's like 7 books or something like that. I'm on the 3rd book, or I just finished the 3rd book, Children of Dune. And if anybody wants to read my reviews of the first 3 books, they're on my website, joesnotesblog.com. You can look up Dune book reviews, and that might give you an idea if you want to read them. But they're definitely like an investment of time and thinking, but they're fun because they're so different. It's not like reading, almost any other book I've ever read.
Yeah. Excellent.
And so, that's my recognition. And I think we got to wrap it up, B.
We'll wrap it up. Yeah, I have dreams of maybe trying to come back to that book at some point. Sometimes I have to like attempt to read a book a couple times and then it just hits at the right moment eventually and then I can get through it. But
yeah, I don't know if it's worth it.
But I'll definitely be watching the movie for sure.
Sometimes I think I'm reading it because of it's like nonsense. It's like epic nonsense. It's like super dramatic, but then like just somebody dies and you're like, why is that so meaningful? And you just have to keep going. It's it's weird. It's very like everything is super significant and important, and you don't know why. So it makes you want to keep reading.
Then you
Anyway.
just wish that Frank Herbert wrote the Bible, so it was a little bit more interesting.
I would read the Bible if this was the Bible. There's like, fucking supernatural shit going on. I mean, there is in the Bible too, but
you got the spice and the big sandworms.
Yeah,
so much more exciting.
Yeah, melange. The melange is everything. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. If I end up putting it on YouTube, which I'm somewhat thinking about doing, although it's just going to take a long time to upload, but I think we should. I think there's no reason necessarily not to, since we've got it.
Consider it B.
Consider it B. That's my new shirt. Thank you, Channing. And any parting words, any plugs you want people to, where can they go to check out your books?
You can just go to Amazon. They're all available through there on Kindle. They're much cheaper. You can buy them in paperback. Just Google, just go to Amazon and search for Channing Cornwall. They'll pull it up.
Look for the old CC.
Yeah. And then if you care, you can follow me on Twitter at Novel Scheme.
Is it a novel scheme? Or
no, just Novel
just
Scheme.
Novel Scheme.
I think I had an A in there at one point, and then I just dropped it because I was like,
oh yeah,
just make it a little bit cleaner.
At Novel Scheme. I am on Instagram, G_grins and fractalfocus.nature for different types of things. And then joesnotesblog.com to check out other things from me, including
so many websites,
photos. Oh yeah, and I started a new one for a YouTube thing I'm doing related to customer service, because I decided that I have not enough things to do. So I did a customerserviceman.com where I do reaction videos to weird customer service videos on the internet. And I'm just trying that out. So if somebody wants to check it out.
Sometimes when I watch those, I have like PTSD from my own customer service situations where I'm just like, I don't really want to watch this because it's just hitting too close to home in certain situations I've been in.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, just saying.
Yeah,
you should maybe put up like a little splash screen at the beginning.
Trigger warning.
That's like a warning. Yeah, like this might trigger you if you
snowflakes, millennial snowflakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Booby boo boo. Yeah,
everything is scary.
It is. Okay, have a good one.
Adios.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. There we go. I stopped recording.